Hi, I'm Gael, and in this video I will help you decide what trails you should hike in New Zealand. This is about multi-day trails, so I am not going to mention day hikes. At the end of the video, I'll tell you what are my 5 favorite hikes and what trails are at the top of my list for a future trip to New Zealand. Over time, I spent 3.5 years in New Zealand, and the first time I was there, I had absolutely zero experience hiking. But when you start looking at things you want to do in New Zealand, it becomes clear pretty quickly that hiking is the best way to explore the country. I think New Zealand is possibly the best place in the world for someone who wants to get into hiking. It has a crazy amount of beautiful trails, especially considering the relatively small size of the country. It has a spectacular diversity of landscapes, and very importantly, it has the best hut system in the world. Both are basic huts, far from the comfort of the refugees in the European or Japanese Alps, but that's the thing. They're affordable and they're everywhere. Personally, I never stay in refugees in Europe just because it makes for a very expensive hike, but in New Zealand you can get a hut pass for $160 a year, or a single ticket that's $10 or $25 for a serviced hut. It gives you access to most huts in the country, but not all of them. The huts on the Great Walks and some of the most popular ones, like Angelus Hut, need to be booked on the dock website. So that means that even if you're hiking in a country where the weather can be very rough, you know that you'll have a roof over your head at the end of the day and most likely a fireplace. Personally, I know that when I will go back to New Zealand, even if I carry a tent for safety, I can't consider not staying in a hut, because they're just an essential part of what the hiking experience is in New Zealand. They're just great for socializing, chilling, reading, or do a puzzle with a cup of tea in winter. The Great Walks are trails that are designed to highlight the best of New Zealand scenery on trails that are extremely well maintained and easy to follow. There can be a little bit of snobism in the hiking community when talking about those trails that are often called the touristy trails versus the other cool off-the-beaten track trails. I think it's unfair because, to be clear, all those trails, apart maybe from the Rakiura track, are really amazing and beautiful trails. Though to be honest, I did 90% of my hiking in New Zealand between 2010 and 2015, and those trails were far from overcrowded back then. My understanding is that they're way more busy now, so of course it's something that can alter your perception of a trail. The wonderful Coromandel Peninsula is not exactly hiking central, but it has a couple of really nice trails. There is the Coromandel walkway, which can be done in a day, but it's a long way to get there and it's a nice one to be camping on. There's also the Kauaeranga kauri trail. It can also be done as a day hike, but there is the Great Pinnacles Hut if you want to make it a nice overnight. Lake Waikaremoana is probably the least popular of the Great Walks, probably because it's not easily accessible, but it's a wonderful trail and definitely worth the effort of getting there. Tongariro is on every hiker's radar, and the Northern Circuit is definitely up to the hype. It's an amazing loop trail in volcanic and otherworldly landscapes that makes you feel like you're in Mordor. And that's because you are in Mordor. You also have the Round the Mountain Track. Some people will have you believe that it's a better trail than the Northern Circuit just because it's less famous, but that's definitely not true. It is a really good trail, because any hiking in Tongariro is great hiking, and yes, you should hike it, but just don't expect it to be as beautiful as the Northern Circuit. But it's definitely less popular, so that's a plus. The Tararuas have by far the best mountain hiking on the North Island. I actually can't remember the names of the trails I hiked there, but the Tararua section of the Tararua is definitely worth it, taking you through beautiful mossy forests and mountain ridges. The Queen Charlotte Track is my very first overnight hike, and I hiked it twice since it's also part of Tararuas. It's an easy and beautiful walk, and you can end your days with the best views you'll ever get with a beer. In Marlborough Sounds, there's also the Nydia Track. It's 27 kilometers one way, so you can either turn around or take a water taxi. The Abel Tasman Coast Track will take you through some of the most beautiful beaches of New Zealand. There's also an inland track, but I haven't hiked this one. The Heaphy Track is a nice and easy great walk through Kauaeranga National Park. I combined this one with the Wangapeka to make a loop of some sort, though you need to hitch in between trailheads. Hiking the Wangapeka was the first time ever that I spent without seeing another human being for 48 hours, which was absolutely mind-blowing for me at the time. If you are a Lord of the Rings fan, Mount Owen is where the Fellowship lives from the Mines of Moria. One trail that I didn't expect much from but really surprised me is the Inland Pack Track. It's 25 kilometers, but with transport, which is usually hitching, it's worth making it an overnight. You're crossing a lot of rivers on this one, and it's actually really fun once you embrace it. Before hiking the Tararua, I had hiked a lot of trails all over the country. I had a few hiking books, so even the trails I hadn't hiked, I was aware of them. So it was quite a surprise that somehow the Richmond Range was completely under my radar until my TA hike. Because it's amazing and possibly my favorite section of the Tararua. And just before the Richmonds, there is the Pelorus Track that follows the beautifully green Pelorus River. That is where the barrel scenes from The Hobbit were shot. Nelson Lakes has a lot of amazing trails. The Travers Sabine circuit takes you through possibly the most famous hut in the country, Angelus Hut. I also hiked a trail called the Durville Valley Track. That's really good, but somehow it appears that it's not really a thing anymore. I don't know if the trail has changed names or something. Anyway, I can show you on this map. You follow the Durville River for a while before going towards Blue Lake, from where you can take an extra day to do a side trip to Constance Saddle. Outers Pass is a fantastic national park with plenty of great hiking opportunities and a lot of cheeky keas. They are the only alpine parrots in the world and they are known to steal stuff, so beware. You can climb Avanlanche Peak, then follow the Croix River route. Part of Tararuas, the Goat Pass Track is a lot of fun. You spend a lot of time walking up the Deception River. The Cass Lagoon Saddle Track is also wonderful. Not too far from Christchurch, Mount Somers Track is great for a weekend away from the city. Just before Tekapo, the Routeburn Track is my second favorite Tararuas section. Just remember to follow the ridge instead of going down the valley, it's much more spectacular. Now let's have a look at what most hikers come here for, the Southern Alps. Of course, you have the Milford Track, that some people have called the finest walk in the world. Well, I don't think it's the most beautiful walk in the world, but it sure is a really good one. And I was lucky enough to have amazing weather when I did it, which doesn't happen much in Fiordland. Just be aware that you need to book this one at least 6 months in advance. The Routeburn is also one of the most famous ones, and you can see why. It is gorgeous. There are some really good side trips you can also do. From Routeburn Flats Hut, you can follow for a few hours the beautiful valley in front of you and turn around when you had enough. You can also summit Conical Hill and Key Summit. I rehiked part of the Routeburn in winter, and that was also absolutely amazing. I stayed at Routeburn Flats for 2 nights, then took a day bag and followed the Routeburn as far as I could and turned around when there was too much snow. The Kepler is one of the most convenient ones, since it's a loop trail that starts in a town. I'm sure it's a great trail, but I had really bad weather for this one, so I didn't get to see much. The Rees Dart is probably one of my favorite trails in the country. To be fair, it has to do with the conditions I had when doing it. I got caught in a snowstorm, but then the next day it was a gorgeous sunny day, which happened to be timed perfectly for an extra day doing a side trip from Dart Hut to Cascade Saddle, which is a must for any hiker in New Zealand. I got to enjoy Cascade Saddle with snow-capped mountains, then to have the landscape completely different from the morning to the afternoon when I returned, because the snow had melted. To this day, still one of my favorite hiking memories. But from what I understand, word has gotten out, and it's a trail that's now on everybody's list. Another way to see the saddle is through the way more challenging Cascade Saddle route. I also hiked a trail that was called the Wilkin-Young Circuit, but that is now called the Gillepsie Pass Circuit. It looked like a great trail, but I had pretty bad weather for this one. If you're looking for easy trails in the Alps, the Greenstone and the Caples tracks spend most of their time in valleys, and they often combine to make a loop. The Caples is a little bit more demanding, but nothing really bad. The Hump Track was a private trail with fancy huts when I hiked it years ago, but it's now a great walk. It's got great views and some really cool rocks. South of the South Island there is Stewart Island, one of the great walks. The Rakiura track is on it, but I really wouldn't bother coming all the way here just to hike this pretty boring trail. There's a longer trail, the Northwest Circuit, and it's my favorite trail in New Zealand. I would definitely not say that it's the most beautiful, but it's just that it has some kind of magical, end-of-the-world vibe that I really loved. The island is famous for two things, mud and kiwi birds. And this trail for sure has both. The mud can be knee, sometimes waist deep, so having decent gaiters can be a good idea. Unlike in the rest of the country, the kiwi birds on Stewart Island are diurnal rather than nocturnal. Realistically, the only way to see a kiwi bird in the wild in New Zealand is by walking this trail. Even on the Rakiura, it's very unlikely that you'll see one. The Northwest Circuit takes usually 10 days to hike, 11 if you do a side trip to the island summit, Mount Anglem, which you should absolutely do. And if you have time, it's worth doing a short day hike on the small Ulva Island, which has some of the best bird life in the country. So what are my 5 favorite trails? Well, I guess you have some clue. First the Northwest Circuit, second the Rees Dart, then the Tongariro Northern Circuit, the Richmond Travers and the Routeburn. Now, what are the trails I'd love to hike next time I'm in New Zealand? Well, first I would try to re-hike the trails where I had really bad weather, like the Kepler or the Gillepsie Pass Circuit. Then I'd like to say the high-level circuit around Mount Taranaki, but I tried to hike in that national park many times, always had really bad weather and gave up. At the very top of my list, it's the Dusky Track, which is very remote and apparently stunning. I hiked all the great walks but one, the Pelorus Track, which didn't exist back then, so I love to do this one. The Cascade Saddle route will be great, the Aotea Track on Great Barrier Island, and the Milford Track in Fiordland. I hope you found this video useful. If so, you can help this channel by simply subscribing and liking this video. Let me know in the comments what trails you hiked and enjoyed, or if you think I forgot some. Thanks for watching and happy trails!